Hi, good morning. I'm here with Jeff Smith from Osprey Plastics. How you doing, Jeff?
How you doing, Mike? Very well, thank you. Yeah, rainy day outside, but
Gonna be more positive on this interview than the weather. That's good. So, if you could start things off as we normally do with the guests on the show with a bit of an introduction as to who you are, what it is that you do, how long you've been doing it for, please.
okay. Well, Osprey Limited, or Osprey Plastics as we're known really, where our head office is in Scarborough, and we are plastics injection molders. So we manufacture, design, manufacture, develop all sorts of componentry for pretty much every industry. We have some of our own product ranges, which we've developed over the 50-year span that we've been in business. And over those years, we've developed all sorts of processes that allows us to give really a one-stop package to anybody who's manufacturing. So we do printing in its various forms. We do welding in its plastics welding in its various forms. Obviously, injection molding. We even overlap into blow molding and rotational molding. And design, obviously, which is key and a key element to anything, any product that's successful. You've got to start with the right design and the right specialist heads on that design to get the optimum out of the product. And that's what we do well. And we've done it for many years. I know it hasn't been fashionable in the last 20 to 30 years to manufacture in the UK.
Yeah.
People automatically think China. However, in the last 6 years, there's been a sea change, and very rapidly now people are desperately trying to reshore. Unfortunately, there's not many of us left, and we find ourselves in a pretty good position where we've invested in the business continually. We've got this breadth and this depth that allows us to face the modern world we find ourselves in, which is increasingly driven by the internet. The demands of the internet, products are selling very rapidly. The TikToks of this world and the Amazons of this world won't allow you to be out of stock. And if your supply chains go all the way back to China, you'll have faced some difficulties in the last few years. So we have conditioned our business and changed with the times to put ourselves into a high service level, offering manufacturing up to 1,000 tons press size, so we can make big molding.
Yeah.
Now, big don't travel well, big products don't travel well, especially in this day and age with logistics from China being so difficult. Again, it's a reason for people to talk to us and use us as suppliers, very good suppliers. And that's
Fantastic.
in a nutshell.
So how did you get into that then, Jeff? What was
Well,
the reason for you?
it is a family business. I'm second generation. So although our business developed into manufacturing many years ago, it's pretty much casting manufacturing now. And so I've always had an interest in making things as a child. I still have a good garage here, which I spend a lot of making things, and that can be for the house right the way through to doing, bits of development that get ahead, and you sometimes in a busy day you can't find a solution, but you sleep on it and you think, well, hang on a minute, there's got to be a solution. So I've got a workshop at home, and we've got obviously engineers at work, and for a small business we have access to some extremely good brains in the industry, which we can call polymer expertise or developments. And that's not just here. We have our supply chains in China for tooling. We used to make most of our own tools, but as is the modern day, tooling is often half price in the Far East. But you've got to be able to manage and control that. If it goes wrong, it can cause untold difficulties. Of course, a lot of that stuff you pay up front for, so very often there's very little recourse. We have a system that we've evolved over the years, which we have refined, that allows us to get the best value out of it. And I'm not sure whether that answers the question, does it, that?
Well, in terms of kind of how you got into it, I think was the first question. And you mentioned it being a family business, and then you've expressed kind of your personality, I think, when listening to that about tinkering with things, having the garage, and sort of showing a passion, I guess, for what you do. In terms of the last few years, and I know we were talking off camera about so the last 6 years, and you mentioned there being a manufacturing business, and there's not many left, in the UK. Obviously, that sector's taken a hit. What would you say is the reason for you that you've been able to create a successful business through all the things that have gone on in the sector, and also, I say, worldwide, really, with those COVID and wars going on and supply chain issues, just to kind of give people an idea of how you've come through that, and what you say the key lessons are in that journey?
I was lucky. It was one of my watershed moments in life was about 30 years ago. We were manufacturing mostly vacuum cleaners, and we were selling them. Our biggest customer was in Australia, and he is in a dominant market position in Australia. And he said to us, "Jeff, you're going to have to move to China." And I said, "No way." And then the next year, we used to meet up once a year. Next year is, "Jeff, you're going to have to move to China." I said, "Well, no, we just can't do that. It's why?" And he said, "Well, they're a fraction of the price, and products are coming on my market which are eroding me. So you're going to have to face up to it. In fact, we'd like to move production to China." We had a joint project that we did. So that was a catalyst. I had to go to China 30 years ago when it was still very much developing. And at the time, we were manufacturing, say, a powerhead, which is almost a vacuum cleaner. We were buying the motor from the US because there's no British motor manufacturers left. And the motor was costing us just over $10. And then injection mold and assemble and pack and test and ship. And so we were shipping probably for about $22, $23. When I went to China, we could buy the whole finished appliance for less than $10, so less than we were paying the motor. And I realized when I was flying back from the plane that, you know what, this isn't going to stop. It's going to keep going. So we have to come up with a plan of how we're going to deal with unnatural costs on products that will just walk through the appliance market and then walk through every other market. So we came up with a strategy which has changed ever since. It's basically, we use China for low-cost entry, for tooling. In the early days, we were using China for assemblies, small assemblies that you could air freight if you got into difficulty. And increasingly, what we've done in the last 7 or 8 years is we've invested heavily in full automation, robotics, controlling energy efficient equipment, machinery. On certain product lines now, we're cheaper than China because we take the labor. We run 24/7 in a lights out situation. So things like, for example, we've done, well, I won't mention it actually, let's not mention that, but the products, and that used to be just on volume products, but the way technology is now, you can do that on relatively small volume products. You can automate them very rapidly and quickly. And if you automate them, not only do you get the price right, but you actually get, if you've got the service level, people come back for the service level. That's what they want. Because in the TikToks of this world, if you don't have if their sales jump up and you don't have 7 days stock, and their sales go from 1,000 to 5,000 a day, and you haven't got 35,000 there available, you're out of business, you're delisted. It's a very vicious world. And you can't do that if your supply chains go all the way back to China. With all the hiccups that we've had in recent times, people have been reminded of how vulnerable they can be. So there's more and more people come to us, and we're quite holistic in it. We look at the product and we say, well, if you allow us to influence you at the early stage, if you've got your own designers, allow us to get the plastics input in there, then the whole project will run so much smoother. And you've got to look at it not just as a supplier, you've got to look at the thing from design through to the end market. And we can plug in and do anything. We can do increasing more and more Kanban stock straight into the, on the online sellers. So we'll do the design, we'll do the tooling, we'll do the manufacture, we'll do the assembly, the printing, right the way through to dispatch. And that's what people want.
So you mentioned luck earlier on, but from what I can hear there, you've got a strategy, sitting down and having a strategy, thinking ahead about how you can overcome or plan for the future and the challenges that are there. Investment in technology and systems in order to compete, but not only compete, it's working with the market and providing a huge amount of service for the people that need the products in a fast supply. And so you can compete against the people in China because of your service element, which is where you're adding value to, I guess what you do. So that doesn't sound like luck to me. That sounds like a lot of business kind of best practice, common sense, and
well, it works. We are a relatively small company, so the communications and we don't. The staff we have tend to stay with us. They enjoy what they do because the job is very, very varied, and we overlap the way we run it. And we're quite small, and it's that smallness gives us the ability to communicate really well. We found that obviously we invest in systems all the time, and increasingly this last 2 years, for example, well, 2.5 years ago, we got a shock on, I know we're drifting off piece a little bit, we got a shock on our electric, for example, which was just one of many shocks since COVID shut down. And our electric bill at Scarborough, we have 2 manufacturing sites in the UK, but our electric bill at Scarborough went from 16,000 a month to 67,000 overnight. Increase. Now that pretty much wipes out your profit and through the year and does all sorts of untold things. Now, I knew that was going to happen and we'd planned for it because when the government had said we all have to drive electric cars, fantastic, I've got one, we've all got one at work, but they never simultaneously announced any investment in growing the supply or sorting out the grid. So you knew there was an engineered crisis in the system. It just took some sort of failings for it to manifest itself, which happened to be blamed on Ukraine, which probably was rightly so. But the impact to us and every other business was we got a nearly 4-fold increase in electric overnight. So we had solar in place and we had batteries in place. So what it did to us, we immediately responded. We were able to, we had a few older machines still, which were power hungry. They were replaced as soon as we could. The solar, we were very quickly ready with the solar, so every inch of the roof was filled full of additional solar, additional batteries. So now we generate nearly, well, this summer more than half, but we're aiming at generating half our electric and storing it on site. So we built a mini grid so we could, and that way we can soften the impact on the products we manufacture for customers and for ourselves. And it's worked. We are now in control more. If we got another doubling in price of electric or tripling in price of electric, it doesn't really affect us now. And we're plans to take that further. So that's just one impact that we didn't see, but we've had quite a few over the last few years. And because we're small and we plan, we can respond quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's coming through in terms of that ability to think and then be better off actually because of the, I suppose, crisis, or was termed an energy crisis. But yeah, there's some people who are able to respond, be resilient, and come out a bit better.
Bring a point at that. I had an awful conversation we have a very good customer in France, and they supply the supermarkets with our product. One of our product ranges is we make chicken equipment. We're Britain's only manufacturer of plastic feeders and drinkers and nest boxes. And we sell a lot in France. During the busy season, we can sell 2 or 3 containers a week into France. We had a big impact with the electric 3 years ago. And I remember talking to our French customer saying, well, look, we've had an increase. We're going to put our prices up this year. And he's, well, oh, we've had an increase. I said, well, we've had a fourfold increase nearly. And he said, no, we've had a 4% increase. I said, well, we've had 400% increase. He said, no, you haven't. You can't have a 400% increase. And it was so embarrassing to try and explain that, yes, we have. Ironically, the French were part of that because they obviously supply a lot of our electric. And he said, no, that's impossible. We've had an increase, but it's 4%. And I thought, and I realized at the end of the conversation, I'd actually damaged the relationship. Mm-hmm. They strategically sort of said, well, we ought to really be looking at moving away from this. It was another reason, as well as Brexit.
Yeah.
Move away. So it's an example of how you have to protect your customers from these impacts that have increasingly been there. I'm sorry I interrupted you there, Mike.
That's all right. So with all kind of this experience that you have, and we were talking off camera that you making plans now for the future, and you've sort of been taking yourself out of the business the last few years. What's the biggest lesson that you could share with people running a business that you say you could take away? If there's one, there might be one or two that kind of come out from all that you've done over the years in the business.
Obviously, you've got to have a good ground. Stepping a couple of steps back, if you've got a great family life and you've got great people around you, mm-hmm. It makes your life a lot easier, because that allows you to, it is a commitment running your own business. And, if you get a phone call during the night, or you've got to do something on a Saturday or a Sunday, you've got to do it. And you've got to have everybody on board with doing that, because that's what you do. It's not a 9-to-5 situation. So you've got to think, you get into a mode of thought that you're thinking all the time, even though you're at home like I am at the moment. It doesn't stop. In fact, it frees your brain up to think more. Mm-hmm. And you've got to have a 5 and 10-year plan. I mean, you might be going through, if you're in firefight mode, it's just a mode that sits there. You should always be thinking about 5 years, 10 years, and then you can find yourself in the right position. It might take you a few years to get there. I mean, we've had times in our early days, where we've been desperate for money, as all businesses go through that. And you've taken very high risks, extremely high risks that will probably be terminal. None of it kills you unless you get highly stressed. But yeah, as long as you've got a plan that you're working to, and you've got plan B, that if it fails, this is what I can do. Sometimes we don't have a plan B other than I've survived, let's move on.
Yeah. Let's get back to the bigger picture after that survival. 5 and
10-year plans, and then you end up where you want to be. But without that long-term thinking, certainly as a manufacturer, you probably slip into firefight mode. Just take each day as it comes, which is fun sometimes, but not fun for the people around you. You've got to have a plan.
Yeah, and not the long term. But that's a great share on sort of 5 or 10-year plans, and something that we definitely advocate. You've got to have that kind of North Star of where you're heading, and build a team around that as well, I guess.
I know I talked earlier about fishing and shooting and doing. But now I'm 65 and I'm still fit. I was planning that when I gave up shooting and fishing when the kids were young, which was 35, 40 years ago. I was planning exactly. I knew in the long-term game, that's where I wanted to be, and that's where I am.
Fantastic. Excellent. No coincidence there. So what inspires you, Jeff, to do what you do, would you say? What's the reason you kind of get out of bed and you've been able to do it for so long?
Well, I'm very, very fortunate. As a product supplier or component supplier to every industry, our inquiries and our customer base is extremely broad. And with plastics is a new material. It's 60, 70 years old, and it's only become sort of generic material in the last sort of 40, 50 years, which is my lifespan, really. And so it's always on the front end of most products in most industries. It's what can we do with the latest polymers? What can we do with the latest processes? And I've seen a rapid change in the development of new polymers, what you can do with them, which is phenomenal, and what you can do with the processing equipment and machinery that's available. So each week I go and talk to or hear about, and we discuss what somebody's trying to do on the front end of an industry to use the latest polymers and the latest processes to try and give them an edge in their industry. And it's fascinating. You know, if you're engineering minded, it's like, wow, this is just, you couldn't wake up and do better stuff than this, really. Obviously, every day is not brilliant. There's challenges as well, which you have to overcome, but you get used to overcoming those. But it's really the interest. And it's what I do like as well is seeing young people come into the industry and see what I saw, which is, isn't this brilliant? Isn't this exciting to have all this stuff happening and people telling you their inner secrets to help develop the latest, best widget, whatever that is. So that's what I find exciting every day.
Fantastic.
The challenge trying to let go is if I find myself at home, you know, I've got a great home life, but you do, if you don't have a lot to do to keep you occupied, you do miss the of being involved in projects.
I bet. I mean, you know, having your business being such a big part of your life, to suddenly remove that would be quite a big change. And I think
I knew that, and that's why it's taken a few years to let the younger crew, you know, run it. And there's a great crew do a fantastic job, and it's a pleasure to actually see, you know, younger people think and react like I did, you know, when I was young, thinking this is good stuff we're involved in, and it's that, so you can let go a little bit more.
Yeah. And how is letting go? Is it going okay?
Yeah, it is. At 65, you know, a lot of my friends, colleagues, acquaintances, even business partners that we've worked with over the years, they've all retired. Some have retired badly. Some dropped down dead. Some have done, you know, embraced and transitioned into retirement really, really well. Well, I'm lucky, really. I've got myself into a position where I've got the best of all worlds. It does work for me. I've had to consider, obviously, the business that's got to keep going because it provides a livelihood, and it provides, you know, it's part of the community. So leaving that in safe hands was very, very important. Obviously, my family are very important, and then myself, looking after myself and keeping myself in good condition is an important part of my life as well. And that's exercising and doing all the things you want to stimulated.
Brilliant. Well, I think we've gone kind of full circle there. So at the end here of the interview, in terms of we ask people latest news, or even if it's just a case of sharing a website or contact information, that if people want to get in touch with you or the business, feel free to kind of do that now.
Yeah, well, we're just finishing a new factory extension, 10,000-foot extension, which is part of our lights out. So we're adding to the robotics and the modern equipment. So if anybody is worried about plastic supply concerns or products concerns or changes in the market, or whether they want somebody to help them make a better widget, if they reach out to us, that's what we do well. And we've got some very, very loyal customers that have been with us for years, and we've helped their businesses. We really have, by plugging into our expertise on polymers, and that's really where we sit.
Fantastic.
So out to us, we'll be online at Osprey, like the bird. Osprey Scarborough, I'm sure you'll find us. And we would anybody with challenges that they're facing and don't know who to turn to develop a better product or get a better supply, then I suggest they reach out to us.
Brilliant. Well, we'll share the website link in the interview share on YouTube and LinkedIn for you. Jeff, been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Thank you very
much.
Thank you very much.
Some great shares, and I wish you all the best with the slow retirement.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thanks for your time.